Okay, seems like all I'm doing right now is recording videos, but it just kind of gives me things to upload. Yes, I look crazy, as I've said a million times. I've been to the dentist. Haven't really gave a shit to fix my hair at this point. Don't really give a shit to fix it at this point because it's almost bedtime again. Yeah, the whole thing with the Trump's supposed ban on transgender in the military. Now, here's what I understand about it. It came out as a tweet, as most things do from Trump, which somebody really needs to take his Twitter away from it. What I do understand, it is not an official law yet. It has not been signed in. He just basically jumped the gun saying that they're going to be banned. I think he has to get the votes. I could be wrong. Since this whole circus started, I kind of backed away. I know that may sound bad on my end, because, you know, since I'm a voting American, I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for her either, so don't start that with me. And I get told all the time, oh, you do business on social media, you need to stay out of politics, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I typically do, but seeing this is something I feel like I need to put my 2 cents in, okay? Everybody that knows me, everybody knows, I do not discriminate against you if you are not heterosexual. I don't discriminate you. I do not discriminate against you if you are heterosexual. But here's the facts. Military, all branches, have had some form of discriminatory actions that have went on for years, for good reason. They have goals. You know, they protect our nation. Most of the people that have to go to war come back home with PTSD. Suicide rate is high among veterans and people who are still currently serving. Because why? It's a stressful situation. It's stressful as hell. Sadly, the small percentage of our population that are identified as transgender that we know of, they have an even bigger suicide rate from what I understand in the numbers that I've looked at. This doesn't mean anything bad about the people. It means that people are not getting the proper help that they need. Proper support, proper love, anything like that. I'm not going to come out right now and say exactly how far that this could eventually affect me or my family, but not at this time. It'll probably come out later. But, I know that there are transgender that are already in the military. I know that there are transgender that have served and already did their time and got out. And I think that anybody that wants to step into that position, serve our country for no more than what they make, put their life on the line in a lot of things. Because somebody said, well, it's not all blood and guts and all that. There's support behind the line. Yeah, there is. Unfortunately, I am married to a guy who is in the military, and I say unfortunately because I can't stand his homophobic ass. He is actually my stepbrother, but he joined the military. I respect him for that. Very surprised that he made it out of boot camp. Me and Dad both assumed that he would be sent home rather quickly because he's lazy and he has a bad mouth. But apparently, drill sergeants scared the shit out of him and they got him acting right. But I do know once his 4 years is up, he won't re-enlist. He also became a daddy through all this too, with a girl who, I guess, I didn't realize that there were women that would legit hang around the, military bases trying to get knocked up by these military men and then be like, oh, you don't have to have anything to do with the baby because the military pays their child support. But he didn't settle for that. He took her to court and got visitation rights to his child. Good for him. Still don't like him. I can't like anybody who blindly hates someone for reasons that they don't even fully understand themselves. But I get it. Okay, if I was to go and try to enlist in the military, even when I was younger, and I'm probably in better shape now than I was then, other than some spinal issues that I have, which I was born with, which would have probably disqualified me from most branches anyway. You know, but I'm not going to stay here and scream that it's discrimination. I mean, and in reality, what true discrimination is, that would be discrimination. They're discriminating against me for something that I was born with. You know, something that can't be helped, something that requires ongoing medical treatment. And it will eventually affect my ability to do my job, be it military or anything else. And yes, you're right. Not everybody that enlists in the military is going to see war. But I do know people who enlisted in the military in areas where you don't think that you would ever see war, and then did see war. You know, chaplains, stuff like that. They were given a gun and sent into battle. You know, this idiot that I'm related to is like, oh, well, they'll never put me on the front line. I'm going in there just to learn computers and blah, 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 blah. My dad's like, you do realize, dipshit, that some of that stuff is in the war zones, just hidden. And they get hit a lot, too, because they know if they take out those bases, they can't control their drones and whatever. You know, my whole family, well, most of all my family on my dad's side, I think all of them, with the exceptions of my aunt and my father, are all ex-military. I know my dad's brother is ex-Air Force. And so we have a lot of that on his side of the family, but my stepbrother is a dumbass. I respect him for what he's done. I don't respect the way that he has treated his mother, and I won't even get started on his brother. But anyway, back to the military and this supposed ban on homosexuals. Or not homosexuals, sorry. That sounded bad in itself. But the ban on transgender in the military. Okay, first off, transgender has been in the military. Okay, we have transgender serving in the military now. There was the transgender that was a Navy SEAL. I don't think that she went through with full transition until after she was out. But she was pretty well known. But here's the thing. Okay, and I don't agree with this. Transgender is classified as, what is it? Sexual dysphoria or something like that. I don't know if I've got that right. Basically making it a mental disorder. Do I think that that's what it is? Absolutely not. I do not think that if you are transgender that you have a mental disorder. Under no circumstances do I see it. I just don't. I was raised around the community my entire life. My aunt and her lifetime partner who helped raise me, you know, they were in my life from the day I was born until my aunt passed away when I was 18, almost 19. And then her lifetime partner passed away. Let's see, Aiden's 10. She passed away when he was 2 or 3. Yeah, when he was 2, she passed away. So, you know, I've been around the community for a lot longer than most people my age. And I don't discriminate. I really don't. But here's the thing. There are hundreds of reasons why you can get rejected by the military. All of which, if this was a regular job, you could sue. But this is our military. They seriously have one job: to defend our country. And I know that when some are out on missions, you know, things get hard. People commit suicide. Missions change. You know, and then you look at the statistics that are thrown out there. I don't know how accurate they are because I don't know exactly what all went into using them. But, you know, our small population of transgender people who are open about it, they do have a high suicide rate. You know, some go back to the whole mental disorder. I honestly think sometimes most of it is due to how they are treated once they are honest with other people instead of people being accepting and loving. Even if it was a mental disorder. Is that really how you want to handle it? Is to be mean to them? Like, I don't get it. But anyway, I understand being transgender in a sense of, you know, being born in one body but feeling like you're somebody else. I went through a small period of that when I was younger. As I got older, things kind of level out more to one side. You know, I really don't agree with early treatment with this until you really know. But, you know, I'm not some of these kids' parents, so I have no way to say so. If my children were to come to me, either of them, and tell me that they're transgender, guess what? I'm going to support them, and I'm going to help them, and I'm going to get them the best help that I can get, including therapy, because it's not easy. It's not easy, for them to even be honest about it. And then, considering where we live, you know, I see daily threats of people threatening to kill transgender people because they're so terrified that they're so good looking somebody transgender is going to hit on them. Really? I've seen several transgenders after full surgery, and I'm going to say, if they don't tell you, 9 times out of 10, you won't know unless they have just a horribly botched surgery or their hormones are not working. I am sorry. Most of you all have came in contact, spoke with transgender people, used the bathroom with transgender people, and guess what? You never knew. I don't think some people realizes how far this reaches until you see a fully transitioned person. All I ever see is a man going in the bathroom with my daughter. Well, hello, a female to male that's fully transitioned by the laws that you want pushed are going to be going in the bathroom with your daughter. So now you're going to go hit this man because that's what they are. They took all the hormones. Most of them are hairier than most men I've met, you know, but all you see is a man following your daughter in the bathroom. Well, by law, you force them to do that. They are now a man. But you want them to use what's on their birth certificate, what was on their given birth certificate. Like, I don't get you guys. I don't. And, like, I get that a lot of you don't understand transgender. And I think that there really needs to be more education brought forth on transgender folks to maybe get some more to understand a little deeper. And maybe, just maybe, that can give us a little bit more compassion for people who are transgender. Again, let me say this. I do not think that it is a mental disorder. I don't. I think that there are people, just like, you know, people who are born with both sex organs. Sometimes sometimes kids are born with 2. Sometimes one don't work or they're not fully formed, so they go ahead and remove that, keep the one that's working. Sometimes both can be fully functioning, and I have read cases where some parents leave them both attached until the child gets older and they figure out which gender they identify with and then remove the other. And then there's some that don't. But I kind of look at it that way. You know, I mean, I know it's not a fair comparison, but that's the best way that I can get some people that don't understand to try to understand. Okay, now back to transgender in the military. If anybody wants to go into the military, serve our country, risk their lives for the little pay that they get, I have the utmost respect for anyone from any walks of life that want to do that. I do. And I am fully aware that we have transgender people in the military now. And if I had to guess, we likely had transgender people in the military before they repelled Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They just weren't honest. Because, see, here's the thing. If a lot of them, if they don't tell you, you aren't going to know. Especially if they haven't even started to transition yet. You know, they can still appear and act like the sex that's on their birth certificate just to do what they want to do. You know, for some people, serving the military is like a dream for them. They want to pay back our country for everything great that our country has done for them. And then people want to pull out the cost of the medications and the surgeries and stuff for them. While that is true, it also isn't enough in the military to say that this is going to cause us a huge cost. I'm saying, from what I have read, it's 1 to 5%, and that's it. Hey, Aiden, will you give me a drink, please, real quick? From what I here, take this. From what I understand, most that want to go into the military have not transitioned yet, are not on hormone therapy, and they're not going to join the military just to get a free treatment and transition while they're there. Some people think that that's how it works, so then that means that a person who is deployed on a mission is now in gender reassignment surgeries, and then that pulls them out of deployment or being deployable, while our tax dollars are still paying for them, so they say. Well, from what I understand, most people that are transgender that are in this service don't go through with transitioning until they're done with their military career. That means that we're not spending any money on them outside of normal things. I'll also get that if there is such a high rate with the transgender community that, you know, the military looks at that as a problem. And it really is, because like I said, the military itself has an issue with suicide rates. Our veterans have an issue with suicide, PTSD, all that stuff. So you're taking somebody who normally is going to have some issues because they're transgender themselves and either aren't accepted or they're still living a lie just to be comfortable and, or not be comfortable, but to make other people comfortable. They're still living the lie, which eventually eats at them, and that's usually why some do it. I'm not going to sit here and say why they do it. I don't know. I'm not transgender. My children are not transgender. My daughter has a lot of friends that are. Now, back to the military. The military has always been discriminatory against all sorts of things, not just identifying as transgender. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They need people that can focus. They need people that can be dependable. They need people that can be deployed. They need people that can fight when they need to fight. Yes, they do need people behind the scenes that are not in the middle of a war, handed a gun or anything like that. But if shit gets rough, those people that they're not giving a gun to and they're keeping behind the lines to work everything else, they're going to be given a gun and they're going to be sent out there to war. Just like some of my friends who were ministers in the military. Now, while I am 100% an ally for anyone that is transgender, I am an ally for anyone who is gay, bisexual, lesbian, queer, whatever you want to label yourself as. I am an ally with you. I feel everybody should be themselves and be themselves without having to deal with you know, pushback or harassment or bullying or anything to that nature. But also I realize that the military is not a private business, you know, where they can be sued for discrimination. They have certain things that they look for in people for a reason. They need somebody to that they can depend on to be there, to be deployable, you know, not being on medication. And I think, now I don't know, I think that that is what some people are looking at, is basically people who have not had a complete gender reassignment surgery or their own hormones that can cause other issues too. And then added in with the stress of being in the military, that it could cause them even worse problems. I get that. But first off, everything I have read just states that what Trump sent out in a tweet is not law yet. One of the guys that is over, I'm sorry, I know politics, but my memory is shot. But one of the guys that's like over all of that, that would take care of that if he was to sign it into law, or if it was to be voted into law, doesn't agree with it. Because we have had transgender in our military now for over a year with no problems. But at the same time too, here's my thought on it. Until they stop saying that people that are transgender suffer from a mental condition, that sadly this is what we're going to deal with. What we need are professionals that study gender assignment solely to prove that it is not a mental disorder, so it can be taken off a list of mental disorders. So then we prove that it's not because you're sick, you know, that you have a problem in the brain, or you're sick in the brain, or whatever you want to call it, before it can then stop being looked at as a problem, stop being looked at as an illness, and just be accepted that some people just aren't born in the right bodies. Just like some people are born with 2 sexual reproductive systems, or a partial one and a full one. You know, do I agree with it? No, not at all. I see why, though. I do. I see why. And until they stop diagnosing people who are transgender with a mental disorder, this is the type of thing that we're going to have to fight and deal with until it is changed. How does it get changed? I don't know. I would assume that it involves professionals, probably years worth of research, and then the findings from that to really change that from being a mental disorder. But as for right now, even though I don't agree with it, legally that's what it's called. I forget the actual name of it right now. I'm sorry, my memory is awful. But sadly, that's the truth. Is it in law yet? No, it's not. Trump tweeted about it, but it's not actually in law. And if you do your research, you'll find that out too. I try not to get too political on here, but this was something that I really felt like I wanted to touch on, because I do have so many friends that are transgender. My daughter has friends that are transgender, and I'm sure my son will probably make friends that are transgender too as he gets older. He starts middle school this year, and as he gets older, it moves on through middle school. My daughter has several transgender friends. She starts high school this year, and she has a couple that are no longer living in this area. One of the situations is really sad, but I'm not going to go into that. They're kids, and that's not my place to say so. I mean, but you have to look at some cases now that are coming up where, like, there's a born-again Christian woman who went before her state government to talk about her child being transgender and her being a Christian, you know, and realizing that her child isn't sick. Her child was not pushed into this because her child was only like 4 or 5, but her child insisted on being called the gender that they felt. They dress that gender, they wear their hair that gender. You know, when you're looking at kids that young in a home that they're not seeing it every single day, they're not learning it. It's how they actually feel. So I don't look at them as freaks. I don't look at them as outcasts. I don't look at them as people with a mental disorder. They're human beings. Human beings just born in the wrong body. And sadly, right now, they're in a fight. They're in a war for their rights. I don't think it's right, but I understand. With the military, I do understand why. They have a job to do. And if you're part of a tiny group that has a very high suicide rate, that isn't really something that the military needs to take on, because they're already dealing with a pretty high suicide rate themselves, either during active duty or after they have been discharged. Again, it's not law yet. I don't know when it'll be law. I don't know if it'll make it into law. I know that there are people, even over the military, that don't agree with this, but The military has every right to turn anybody away because they're looking for people who are of sound mind and body. And like I said, I could never join because of some physical problems that I was born with my spine. Then I have interstitial cystitis, so there would be times that if they needed to deploy me, I wouldn't be able to be deployed because I would be under medical care. You know, am I going to go in there and get mad when they don't take me and scream discrimination? No, because it's there. They can't take people like me. My ex-husband was denied entry for pretty much some of the similar reasons. I won't tell you his reasons. It's his business. So with the transgender, I'm a little torn about things. I do understand their side of it. Just like I understand why transgender people would want to serve in the military, why they have served in the military. But I think it's one of those things that if you want to serve in the military and you're transgender and you think that you're going to be able to handle maybe staying physically the gender that you were born until you're done with your service, then transition, I don't see a problem with that. The Navy SEAL that I mentioned did not have gender reassignment surgery until after she was done. I don't see a problem with that. I think some of the fight is over cost of ongoing hormone treatment, plus the state or the country paying for your gender reassignment surgery, which I really don't agree with that being a cost. Which really isn't adding but like 0.05% onto what we already pay for medical costs for our troops when they're out on the road. But you've got to think, if you're a transgender troop who is in the middle of gender reassignment surgery while enlisted and they need you to deploy, you're not medically cleared to deploy. So what are they paying you for? So I do see that. I'm not against transgender people being in the Army or any kind of service. I believe as long as themselves are stable in their lives and on their medications that are okayed by every branch of the service and that you can pass all of the tests, I don't see any reason why you can't serve. If you are transgender and you have not been through gender reassignment or anything like that, and you want to enlist and you can pass all the tests, good for you. But don't expect to go through transition while you're in the Army and let them pay for it, because I think some people are more worried about people who are transgender signing up for the military to get free gender reassignment surgery. That's what I really think some of them are afraid of. I don't want to, we've came so far, I don't want to take steps back, but I do see some of the concerns on one side that everybody just wants to blow off. And for the record, I mean, I'm not homophobic by any means. I don't judge people. I don't even really keep up with a lot of this stuff because when the news just pisses me off, I'm not a big Donald Trump fan. I don't think he was ever qualified to be a politician. He reminds me of a 3-year-old who throws temper tantrums. I've been in full support of human equality rights for years. In fact, I marched in the Gay Pride Parade with my children and my husband a few years ago with our local Humans Equality group. I have a lot of history of volunteering with our local community, even as a straight married woman. I want to set an example for more people like me to be allies with the community. There's other things that I want to tell you guys about me and my life that would make you understand a little bit more, but until some other stuff is out in the open, I'm not going to talk about them until I know that the person is okay with it. Anyway, I hope this doesn't change your opinion on me. It's just kind of my view on things. I don't think they need to be banned, but I do understand where some people are coming from, but I also think that they should fall under the same stipulations that the rest of us do. They have to be able to be mentally sound, you know, physically able to do the job. And I don't think that they should be allowed to do a gender reassignment surgery while on active duty. You know, I could see if it was a surgery to repair an injury, but that isn't. That is still considered an elective surgery. And we need professionals working to stop having transgender people labeled as having a mental disorder, because they don't. I've met so many transgender people throughout my life. They do not have a mental disorder. I've done enough research that proves they don't have a mental disorder. And if people would stop bitching and complaining and arguing and fighting with each other and actually do the research, they would see what I see and see that it's not really a mental disorder. That was something that was said years ago and diagnosed with years ago that's never been revisited to look at now that we have further advancements in medicine. There's proof out there that if a woman wants to transgender, you know, wants to go through full transition to male, they have the brain of a man, but the body of a female. So I totally get it. So I don't see how that can be considered a mental disorder. You know, I feel like we need to get some really good people who have been to school just for that. Let them do the research and present it and see if we can get that stopped being labeled as a mental disorder. And, you know, looking at it as a real thing, not just a mental disorder. And then we can stop so much of the discrimination against it, even if it's with the military, even though they can still say no if the person isn't mentally sound enough to deal with combat or physically pass the test. Again, I know transgenders have been in the military this past year, and I would promise you they've been in there years before and nobody's known. Because either, you know, most of them hadn't transitioned yet or hadn't started transitioning, or maybe some had fully transitioned by that point. I don't know. But, you know, I applaud anybody that's got the guts to do what they do just in everyday life. It's hard. It's dangerous. If you come out as gay, lesbian, bi, queer, transgender, that puts you in harm's way, sadly. So many people that are against it, not just to voice their disagreements, they want to get physical with it. And that's when things start getting dangerous. You know, people are attacked all the time for being transgender, for being gay, and it's not right, you know. And then we have where our suicide rates are getting out of control due to stuff like this. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but I don't think people really realize how discriminatory the military has been for years, and they have the right to be considering what it is that they do. And no, it isn't all, you know, blood, guts, and war, but if you're enlisted and things get bad, you will see war. And that's what a lot of combat, that's what a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. Anyway, I hope I haven't made anybody mad, and I hope I make sense and I'm not kind of like talking in circles. And one day, very soon, I hope to be able to share with you a little bit more about myself and my family, so that you guys understand that I'm definitely not homophobic. You know, like I said, I was raised by two women when my parents were busy, and my husband actually has, that we know of, two lesbians in his family, or two lesbians he's related to, one being a sister, one being an aunt. My dad's little sister was lesbian. You know, like it's all normal to me. You know, I don't look at them any different. My kids don't look at them any different. But yeah, there's a part of my life that you guys don't know about yet, but I'm giving everything time to come around. And then once the person is comfortable, I'm going to let them tell their story on their own, and I'm not going to push them to do it, because I understand that they're worried right now about their safety. Anyway, people shouldn't have to worry about that. Be kind to one another. You never know what somebody could be going through. Give them a hug. Tell them that you're there for them. Talk to them. And if they're talking crazy or making threats of suicide, don't brush it off as attention, wanting attention. Take it serious, because you never know. And if they were to be serious about it and take their lives, then you have to live with that for the rest of yours. It's time that we get real about things. But I hope everybody understands. I'm going to keep following this to see, if it's actually ever made law, other than just a tweet from the crazy man that's calling the White House a dump, from what I've read. Could be false news according to him. I don't know, but I could see him saying something like that. Anyway, I love you guys, and trust me, I do not ever want this page to turn political, and hopefully this is one of the last times that I have to mention politics here. Love y'all.